Rick, good morning.
Well, good morning, Keith. How you doing long distance?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just grateful that you're in my life. I start off every conversation with you. I end every conversation with you by saying, I love you. And I do. I love you, man. And
Well,
thank you for
thank
being
you.
in my life and for being a mentor and just a positive presence.
That's the thing, Keith. I love you too. And I love the idea that we have this relationship after all of these years and even through this pandemic. And it hasn't changed a bit. The means or the vehicle of expressing it is different because we can't be together and do shit we like to do. But it's amazing just to have you in my life and I can see you on screen and that's good enough for now.
Oh, likewise. And I feel the exact same way, man. I'm just so grateful and just accepting what we do have and taking full advantage of it. That falls right into the today's show topic, which is the opportunity offered by the pandemic. So why don't you kick that off? Because it's really easy to look at what's missing and what's different and struggling and suffering over that. But there's some opportunities here. So why don't you start us off?
Well, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to turn it right around to the audience and say, hey, we've been in this thing now for a couple of weeks or a month, depending on when you started. Have you noticed some things that are different that you like and some things that are different that you don't like? And why don't we start with an obvious one? I mean, it's great to be home, right? I mean, it's really wonderful not to have to do a commute. That might be one positive for a lot of people. A second positive might be I'm around my loved ones. I get to see my loved ones in the home that I've created with them. And it's a wonderful experience to see them interact with me in our home and to interact with our home with me. That's a wonderful thing as well. It's great to have my work that's so important to me right here, an arm's distance away. I can go to the washroom anytime I want, and it's just 5 steps away or less, depending on where your office is. And I think also the idea that there is some kind of trust that you have in yourself to do the work and to really be productive despite the fact that you're not mixing with other people. So those are some positives. I think there are a ton more. One of them that I hadn't mentioned is the possibility to do exercise and to do mindfulness training and to do meditation and to do the things that contribute to our health anytime we want. It's not a situation where we now have to be so precise with our calendars and so precise with our time limitations that we can't do something that interests us. We can follow our heart wherever we want to go, at least for a longer period than you could if you were at work, say. You can get out that yoga mat right now and do some yoga. With all the electronic advantages, you literally have movies at your disposal. You can learn how to whittle. You can learn how to repair your carburetor if you like. And it's on your own time. So I think that two things that are amazing to me about this that I think are worthwhile and perhaps will continue after the pandemic are, number one, the idea that we don't need to go to a special place necessarily every day. Maybe we do because of our job. We all have different kinds of jobs, so this rule won't apply to everyone. But I think we have to do less of that, or will have to do less of that. Secondly, there's a different kind of trust relationship and a different kind of inner motivation that's come from having to work at home and having to do things in a more measured manner that allows you greater freedom once you figure out what your routine is. Always, always, the rule is discipline and the routine seem to be the thing that contribute most to happiness and freedom. That's the structure that you need to have a successful outlook on life, I believe. Those are a couple of thoughts that I had. How about you?
Yeah, Rick, I love those thoughts. I was listening to you talk about loved ones being home, and it's kind of funny that I talked to a few people, and that's exactly why they like going to the workplace to get away from the loved ones at home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whether,
Well,
yeah, whether it's kids or whether it's a spouse who you may be on different sides of the coin when it comes to politics. But even that is opportunity and access. You can create better partnership with the kids at home if you have little ones, and you can establish what are some distinct times that they're going to be doing schoolwork that frees you up to do whatever your job is if you're fortunate to still be employed. But it just everything creates an opportunity. So Like you, I love the title of this show, opportunities offered during the pandemic. And for me, what it's meant is I'm just able to do everything in a more present way.
Oh,
I
which
mean,
one?
everything that I was already doing, like my capacity to be present, to just be and be fully there has expanded. So I was already doing the morning practice anyway.
Why do you think that
Uh,
is? Why do you think being isolated or uh, being in place has created that phenomena for you?
I got to say it's got to be psychological because I
Yeah.
still got the same 24 hours in a day that anyone else does. While I have the wellness company here, ToBeRe, and I'm doing the same amount of work that I did before in terms of hours logged, and I've been furloughed from, the healthcare organization that I was working at. I'm still volunteering, 20 to 25 hours a week. So my workload hasn't changed. So it's got to be something about psychological. It's got to be psychological. I'm going to bed earlier, not by much. I'm getting up a little bit later. So normally I would get up at 3:30 or between 3:30 and 4:30 every morning. Now I'm getting up between 4:30 and 5. So I'm getting a little bit more sleep, but I'm staying up a little bit later too. So it's the same 24 hours. I think just there's been this shift, and you know what it is? It's been complete acceptance of the pandemic. Like it's really created the space. So none of my energy is being siphoned off, wishing it were different. I mean, of course, this is not, there's a more desirable experience I like to have. I like everyone to be gainfully employed. I like for no one to be adversely impacted by it in terms of their health or anyone dying. Of course, I want that. Outside of that, I've just fully accepted, like, I'm wearing a mask when I go out, I'm social distancing. Okay, these things that I used to do, I'm not doing those right now. I'm allocating my time toward, playing piano, getting better at video editing, whatever this new skill set is that I want to pick up or further expand upon. That's what I'm doing. So I think what's created that space for me, Rick, is complete acceptance of what is, and not worried about when will this be over. Man, once you start thinking that, man, you know what's right behind that? Suffering, and they're holding
Yeah,
hands.
that's right. That's no good. Yeah, it's always better to adapt, right? To be green and
Yes.
flexible rather than brown and brittle and have it your way. Because every time you have an expectation, that's grounds for the universe to smack you in the head and say, it's not your call. You don't get to vote. What shows up, deal with it. And if you can't deal with it, then you suffer. So I think that's a wonderful thing that you've realized. That's true. When you eliminate all of that wanting it to be otherwise, you create more joy in your life. Some other things I think will notice is that in my business with the law, courts are pretty much shut down. Everything's done by Zoom now. Depositions are done by Zoom. Motions are argued to the court by Zoom. So I think it's probably going to be a lot more like this when we go back after the pandemic is over. We're still going to have jury trials, of course, but I think a lot of the motion practice and deposition stuff and seminars. Oh my goodness, this is a
Yes.
wonderful time for seminars. I don't know how many seminars I've taken, and I've learned so many new things because you know, trying to take a day off to go to a seminar. Oh, it's really tough with a hectic practice. So I've always put it off, and then basically ended up doing at the last minute the minimal amount, and usually involved with seminars that may not be on my practice area, and I just take them because I need the hours. Well, not now. With this pandemic, I can dial up all kinds of really interesting
Yes.
stuff that I've been curious about. And there may be an hour and 20 minutes, 2 hours, and I
Right.
can sit right here like I'm doing with you and learn this stuff. Here's something else that's kind of strange too. I was very interested in learning more about the technical aspect of how the internet works. Well, there's
Right.
literally thousands of little seminars you can take about the internet, how it came to be, how it works, how the electronic transmissions are managed, why this stuff never gets erased, how come there's infinite room. That stuff fascinates me. So whatever it is for the individual person, if you were to say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour a day learning something new, or I'm going to spend an hour a day perfecting or becoming better at something I already do fairly well, I think that would be very self-supporting, very helpful for us, and increase happiness as well. So You know, the webinar aspect of it is another thing. I want to touch on one other thing that's kind of my pet thing anyway, and that's the idea of being outdoors. To me, this isolation has nothing to do with being indoors. I've probably
Right.
been outdoors more than I've been in, and maybe it's psychological or emotional or whatever, but I feel a real draw to being active, to being physically outside. And I feel much
Right.
better when I do it. I've got a golf course that is behind my house. I don't golf and I don't have the membership, but boy, it's sure a beautiful, beautiful place. And so I get out there. You can walk the course before the first tee time, which starts at 7. So I get out there maybe 4:30 or maybe 5, just barely when it's starting to turn gray and you can make out some
Hmm.
colors. Man,
Yes.
it's gorgeous. And sometimes the sprinklers are going and you're walking in that green and you got the big trees and oh man, what a nourishing experience that is. So it doesn't have to be a golf course. It can be the desert. It can be anything
Right.
that gets you outdoors and gets you moving. But I think anything that you do with a nature component where you're exerting yourself makes you feel alive and healthier. That's never going to change for me. And it wasn't affected by the pandemic at all. I've always been a hiker and an outdoor
Yes,
guy,
you have.
exerciser. But for other folks, I think this might be an opportunity for them to have a major change in their life for the best by getting out in nature, doing that meditative walk, getting the exercise, filling your lungs, feeling like you're invincible because
Right.
it's just so healthy to be outdoors.
Yeah, I think it's really important that that once you start to accept, the situation, and you begin to incorporate a lot of these healthy habits that you carried with you moving forward. Like one of the things that I've been asked about for over a decade is the way that we create community in ToBeRe. How can we, uh, offer this to someone that lives in another part of the country?
Mm.
And, I really hadn't I thought about it. I just like, I don't have the time or energy to put into that right now. And so I hadn't over a decade. And this pandemic has said, hey, you need to figure this out. And so if you want to try to really provide some kind of wellness benefit to the community and connection, you need to figure this out. So it's offered that opportunity for me to, have some high-speed internet installed here at the studio, as well as a big monitor, learn how to navigate the audio and visual part of the technical requirements to pull this off. Like all those things have been like really great. You and I podcasting right now, so you don't have to drive from Sedona down here. Like all those little things, it's afforded us this, and now we got this completely different medium that we didn't use before. I think the key for a lot of folks is going to be and you may be the same, anytime I've discovered something that was truly beneficial to me. In the past, it was all about achievement and being goal oriented
Mhm.
toward material success or status. But anytime, even with that, anytime I found something that was valuable with me, I found a way that if this is so valuable to me, I got to incorporate it and keep it moving
Yes,
through the rest of my life,
absolutely.
right? And I think this affords that opportunity. So for those people, and I think a lot of people have really taken out to hiking trails and morning walks, either solo or with loved ones. I think a lot of that's happening right now. So when this new normal starts to take root, will you continue this healthy habit that you have right now? This new dimension that you have in the relationship with your significant other or your children, will you continue to deepen that? I'm hearing friends talk about, I'm doing these Skype calls with my 90-year-old parent or with my sister. A lot. Like, will you continue that communication? Will you continue doing that? Like, it's so meaningful to you. Will you continue to do it, or will you let yourself become reactive again and just kind of let life just lead you to wherever it leads you? And for me, I hope people will continue to make this a part of their day. That's what I love about the practice. Is the practice is non-negotiable. You make it happen every single day. When I see couples together that have been together, for a significant amount of time, whether it's 40, 50, 60 years, and I see them when I leave my house to go to the studio in the morning, I see two couples, on different streets every morning, man. They're walking together, man. And what I see is I don't see them just walking together. I mean, I saw them walking long before the pandemic kicked up,
Mm.
and I see them walking, they're talking to each other. And I have no idea how long they've been married, if I had to say, it's been decades. And that connection, Rick, like they're literally
Mhm.
close and connected, and they're each other's, best friend. And I'm sure they've had challenges along the way. And those walks have been such an incredible vehicle to overcome the ego that either party may be allowing to be in the way of their relationship being the best that it can be. And those walks they walk it out literally. And so, will those things continue? I see couples taking bike rides together and stuff like that out in nature. Will that continue? And to say that you don't have time, I was taught a long time ago, means that it's not a priority.
Yeah,
And so I just hope those things continue. So for me, I've already started the groundwork of like, okay, how do I do in-person courses and wellness offerings for people, as well as do the virtual? How do I do both and still try to fulfill on the same level of quality and connection? So I'm working on that right now because I want to take what I've learned from this forward if it's been
that's
so beneficial. So
that,
what are your thoughts?
that's great, Keith. I admire that. I think that's a wonderful idea because you're right that your business model was pretty much limited on you being in one place with a bunch of people following your
Right.
orders in that place. Now you can do all sorts of other things. You could before, but now people are more receptive to the idea that Zoom.
Yes.
Now, here's what I was thinking as you were speaking. I hadn't thought of this before, but you and I are not on Facebook, and
No.
I'm not on Twitter either. And for me, it's personal because I think it's a cesspool of people making fun of each other and being uncivil and being extreme. What I'd love to see happen is to have something like a Zoom situation on a Facebook level. I would participate in that because I think, number one, when we're looking at another human being in the eyes, like you and I are doing right now, it's very difficult to be a jerk, to
Right.
insult them. And because we can see each other, it's very difficult to take advantage of another person. People will still do it. But I think most of that garbage that you see in Facebook might fade away if we have a chance to look at one another. So if there was a Zoom Facebook, I think I might give that a whirl. Who knows? It could be corrupted, but the idea that we can literally talk to anybody in the world and see them at the same time in real time is fantastic. There's got to be an application that's not being used or has been underused that we can take more advantage of. That's a really great opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When you look at how uncivil some of those platforms can be, psychologists have done a big study on this, is that when you can hide behind a medium or be anonymous or be part of some kind of group think, some of your poor behavior, comes out. And I think like if a business owner had to be on a call and could be asked questions back and forth, and it'd be like, it would they would have to come clean, or you would see who they really are. Or if there's a doctor at the hospital who is not being kind, or whatever, he's one way or she is one way with the patients and a completely different way with their staff. Your name is up there, your face is there, here we go. What is your commitment to being your best and being civil? I think all those things are opportunities with this pandemic to really be our best self. I mean, I know we're seeing some of that not happening, but I'm also seeing a lot of the good happening too. And I'm really hopeful that people will carry this healthy goodness with them moving forward. I hope so.
Yeah.
I got some folks that I work with at the hospital. Man, this team that I work with, Rick, man,
Well,
they
you've
are just
talked about them. I'd love
oh,
to meet them.
dude,
They
dude, we
sound
talked about the
incredible.
practice. Yeah, we put the practice together. Everybody's in on it. We're communicating.
Nice.
We're open. We're vulnerable. We're authentic. I mean, every morning, everyone's like checking in and sharing with that they've completed the practice, that they're doing the work, and you see it, man. And they're able to identify their teachers that show up during the course of the day that can make the practice
Yeah.
even more necessary. So it's just really cool.
One other thing I was thinking of too, I mean, with your team, just like with my team, paralegal and two paralegals actually, and a part-time lawyer. It's a lot easier to communicate when you have Zoom. You can do a lot more in 5 minutes, and I think it's a lot more fun than on the phone. The phone is sort of dry, and you don't get facial expressions. Now, sometimes it's more efficient, just like email is more efficient, but this is another means of communication that's personal and human. And I think now that we're kind of used to doing it, I hope there's more of it. Let me give you one other thought about this, and that is the educational opportunities. You know, I've
Hmm.
joined something called the Free University and Coursera. These are two independent content producers, and they basically, I guess, sign up professors from all different sorts of disciplines, and they give random lectures. I was listening to one on the Constitutional Convention. I was listening to another one about open heart surgery, listening to another one on the 1917 Russian Revolution. I mean, you can literally go from one to the next, and these things are gorgeous. So educational opportunities are enormous as well. We have the opportunity also, and this is kind of probably political, but we have the opportunity to have town halls like this. Wouldn't it be great if we had
Yes.
a town hall where we could all participate on Zoom and have more of an intimate relationship? What about the idea of online voting? What about the idea of being able to actually have a democratic system outside of the electoral college where I press the button and I vote for who I want? It doesn't go through a convention. It doesn't go through electoral college. It's Rick, and this is my vote. Tally it up. You know, so I think there's a lot of really interesting things, and this is kind of like the old theory that you can't stop an idea whose time has come,
Absolutely.
and it's very tough to put the genie back in the bottle with Zoom or with any of these programs that we're dealing with now. So it's a really great opportunity that I'm hopeful for will be used for good in a way that'll make us closer, a more democratic, reasonable, and more civil country.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that Zoom and some other platform have had some security issues, but they work really hard to and continue to work hard to solve those. So, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And another thing too that I think is really important, because prior to this virtual way that we're communicating now, and I started going back to school at Arizona State University. Uh, it was a big technology, barrier that I had to come get over, with how much it changed since I went to, college 30 years ago. And it was less a physical barrier and a knowledge barrier than it was a psychological, and I think for people and I love the online school now, man. I'm like, I don't think I'll ever sit in a classroom again. Like, I love this, you know. And the same thing with this virtual communication with Zoom is I told myself that prior, like, I don't like it. It's not the real thing. And what was happening is I was comparing, and there's no need to compare. One is this way, one is the other way. They both offer the same opportunity to communicate and connect. And once I let go of that, this is not the same as being in the physical presence of another person, a group of people. Once I let that go, man, the possibilities were endless. All the benefits were endless about how much I enjoy communicating this way. And I think that's going to be really important for people, is to stop comparing it to the way it was before, and just really be open to how great this can be if you accept that this is different. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts, Rick?
that's well said, Keith. I think what we should do in the show notes too is let's give the viewers a bunch of different options on things that they may not have thought about, or things that they're not exposed to. News sources, for example, meditation sources. Heck,
Yeah.
I just joined a network of web. This is crazy, but in my business, it's enormous for me. I just joined something called CVN, which is a closed circuit trial network station. So for $50, I think a month, I can get every trial that I want to hear all over the country. And they
Oh,
have an
wow.
archives for trials that are famous trials. So if I have a case, let's say that's working defamation that I'm working on, called a defamation case, I can go onto the biggest verdict in the history of the US, punch in that code, and I can see the start to the end of that trial. Every mistake
Wow.
lawyers made, every question the jury had, every statement that the experts said, that whole trial is available to me just by pressing a button. And that's available to anybody who has the $50 a month. But in my
Right.
business, that's an enormous, enormous advantage. I can watch Jerry Spence. I can watch the old Mel Belli. I can watch any of these guys who were famously successful and pick up tips, but also see the problems that they entered into and how they got around them. So for me, that's another example, sort of a trade school kind of thing. But my point is that it's changing so much that we can literally sit in our butts in our houses and get way, way more of a rich experience if you're willing to let go of your expectations that you have to be somewhere doing things the old way.
I love it, Rick. I absolutely love it. That's great. I mean, just think about you preparing for a case and you'll learn what cases that they successfully cited before to help with their arguments. And that just helps you have another reference point.
Yeah, or here's another application. Suppose I have a case. I do medical malpractice work, and let's say I'm suing a doctor, and it's a laparoscopic cholecystectomy that went wrong, which is a common problem. I can actually look at the cross-examination of the doc who did the procedure, and so that will guide me on knowing what the doc is likely to say in my case. So,
Wow.
I mean, the applications are incredible. The other thing that we haven't even talked about, which is how about if we had office hours? Let's say each person now had a little office hour thing where anybody could tap in and you could have like what I would call office hours with the world. So let's say one of your heroes, I don't know, let's say LeBron James had office hours from 10 to 11 every Friday. Wouldn't that be cool? He
That'd be
pops
cool.
up, and then you got a chat room. We raise our hands. Hey, LeBron, when you were sweating out that last shot, what was going through your mind? Or was that, who's the biggest whiner in the NBA?
Right.
It would really be cool. And it's
Yeah,
no skin off his butt. I mean, it's an hour of his time. How hard is that, right? So he'd be more
exactly.
inclined to do it. Any of these
Exactly.
people who are very, very inaccessible now become accessible.
Oh, yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So I think we've covered quite a few offerings. I think your invitation at the beginning of the show to ask, the audience to send in theirs,
Yeah.
what some of the benefits that they see, I think that would be great. So
Office
Rick,
hours. I love
go
the
ahead.
office hours.
I do too, man. I do. Rick, thank you for a great show, man.
Oh, thanks, Keith. I love you, man. You really, I just have to give you a compliment and acknowledge how how impressed I am by how much you want to reach other people and help their lives. People don't know this, but this takes a lot of work on your part to put these things together and to put them on air. And it also takes a lot of time commitment for you. And you make nothing. There's zero coming back except for a smile on somebody's face and a compliment that they got something out of it. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful, altruistic, great thing that you're known for.
Right. Thank you, Rick, man. You're my example. So, and
Yeah.
we're partners. So
All right,
thank you
man.
so much, man. I'll talk
Adios.
to you soon. I love you.
I love you.